Hello. I hope everyone is doing well this afternoon. Welcome to another session of Panos Live. My name is Chelsea London and I am a web designer at Panos Marketing. And a couple weeks ago I talked a little bit about how you are not your user. I briefly mentioned it. And this is actually one of the most basic tenets of UX. That you are not your user, and I want to today dive into that a little bit more and explain more about what that means, because it's one thing to say it and then another thing to actually understand what that means. So you are not your user. So likely you use your site almost every single day. You know your products inside and out, and you use your site as a tool to educate your customers on your financial institution and sell the products that you offer. So this is the context in which you make your decisions for your website and how you're using your website. And for your decisions about your website, that's the content, that's your products that you put on there, that's the decision making that I'm talking about. Now, assuming that you are your user. Whoops, I got a phone call. Sorry about that. So, as I was saying, assuming that you are your user is a fallacy, and that tends to be deeply ingrained within our minds, and this is called the false consensus effect. It is the tendency to assume that others share your same beliefs and will behave similarly in a given context. But your users have a different context than you have. So that's essentially what I mean by you are not your user. So you can't or you shouldn't approach the decisions you make about your website to fit or tailor your subjective preferences. So if you think about it, your users are coming to your site, they're exploring it, and they might be exploring a product for the very first time that's new to them. And usually users have a goal in mind. A lot of times it's logging into their online account, it's opening an account, it's looking for a specific loan. And when they're following this goal, they're going to ignore everything else. And even things that you personally love all the time. And an example of this would be your feature slider. So a lot of financial institutions approach the feature slider as a marketing tool to show their newest offers, their newest products, what's hot, what's in right now. And a lot of times we see that different departments want representation on that feature slider, and they're happy when they get to see that product on the homepage. But honestly, that's your personal preference, right? And your users are not approaching the feature in the same way. They're not checking it how you want them to. And our heat mapping data shows that users aren't interacting with the feature hardly at all. They're not interacting with the slides. They're not interacting with the controls. And I'm not going to give you a solution to that specific problem today, because that's an entirely different topic. And I just want to talk about you're not your user. So that's a really good example, right? So that demonstrates that your approach to your website in the case of the feature is that you are making decisions that suit your preferences, but your users aren't interacting with that or using the things that you're deciding upon. So that's the key difference here. So it is really important to understand your user, but you also want to avoid just outright asking them what they want. And I don't have any visuals today, so no ketchup bottles or anything, but I do have a little parable for you. And it goes something like this. If Ford had asked the people what they wanted, they would have said, "We want faster horses." But instead he made the automobile. And the point of that story, the point that it's trying to make is that users don't know what they want, and they definitely don't know what the right solution is. People say one thing and they do something completely different. And this is why you don't want to rely on what people say they do or on the predictions of what they say they may do in the future. So you might be wondering, Chelsea, you're telling me that I can't ask my users what they want, and I can't do what I want. I'm not saying you can't do what you want, but if I shouldn't be really designing around my own preferences, then how do I design for what a user needs? And how we can then convert that into sales or more, whatever your goal is, more online account opening, that sort of thing. So this I will tell you. You need to watch your users. And there's a variety of ways that you can actually watch your users. So heat mapping, as I've mentioned a few times, is a really good one. And this shows you how users interact on the page. It shows you their behavior, how far they're scrolling, what they're clicking on, what they're looking at. So that's a really good one. And another good one is your own data, right? So the data that has generational breakdowns by product, your retention rates, your product per customer, etc. Like all of that data, and those in combination with each other is really good information for how to guide your decision making on your website and the design and the flow. You also want to design for predictability. So you want to use design patterns that are common, people are used to it, they're used to seeing it, they expect it. This is stuff like menus, navigation drop-downs, login buttons, selections from lists, that sort of thing. You also want to give context, and this is just making sure that your pages have clear headings and it matches what they clicked on, whether that's a button on a page or one of the navigation items up top. So if I click on mortgages, right, and I go to a page that says I don't know, like buy a new house or something like that, like it's not quite what I expected, right? I want to see mortgages, and it's especially egregious if you do something completely different. Like if I click on mortgages and it takes me to get a new farm or something like that, like something that's just completely unrelated to what you would expect. So that's what I mean by give context. And so if you have headings that match what a user clicked on, then that'll reassure the user that they went to the page that they were intending to go to. And it also gives them a really good idea of what to expect on the page too. And then you want to also, the last thing is that you want to strive for clarity. So last time with the ketchup bottle, I talked a little bit about don't make me think. And this is a really good rule of thumb to live by. So while visual consistency within your brand on your website is good, clarity is slightly more important. So you want to design your information architecture to support scanning, and make sure that if something looks like it functions a certain way, that it actually functions that way. So if I'm looking at a button and I can't click it, then that kind of defeats the purpose. That's not clear to me. Or if you have something that you are supposed to click and it doesn't look like it's clickable at all, that's even worse. So just making sure that you have that clarity with your visual cues. I go a lot more in depth on this in a blog article that I wrote, and that should be on the website in the next few days. I go into a lot more detail. So if you go to panosmarketing.com/learn with a capital L, and keep your eye out for that article. You can read about it. You can read more in depth about that false consensus effect, and more in depth about some of the ways that you can design your website that meets your users' needs. So that's what I got for you, and hopefully I didn't go too long. And if you have any questions, please reach out to us. Reach out to the Panos team. Reach out to us on here, and I hope you have a great day.